We're on.
All right, welcome back to the Unpopular Playground, everybody, and glad you joined us once again. Today, we're going to be going a little bit more into the topics that Jen and I briefly touched on the last time regarding boundaries. We're going to be talking about narcissists and energy vampires and manipulators and critics. So, we're going to start off. Ramahn is here today with us. So, he's going to start off and give us some of his ideas and feedback on what he feels, how to spot, and also how to avoid or deal with narcissists. You're on.
Yeah, so a pretty heavy topic. What's up, everybody? And sorry about my camera. I know the quality is really kind of crappy, but anyway, narcissism. So yeah, this is a very heavy, deep topic, and I think that people now are waking up to the fact that narcissists, and I'm very careful with labels, by the way. I don't like using labels, but just for the sake of this conversation, I think people are waking up to the fact that narcissists aren't just people that misbehave here and there, or that's just the way he is or the way she is, or they don't have a filter. It's a lot more than that. If the way I would summarize it is people with this type of personality disorder will most likely had some kind of trauma from their childhood that they left unresolved. And that's probably a lot of us. We all have some kind of trauma, but most of us have either dealt with it or are dealing with it and don't hurt other people to compensate for whatever trauma we face. So first, I think the way to handle narcissists is to realize who and what they are. So I think once you realize, what they are, who they are, where they're coming from, and that they're hurting themselves, the reason they hurt you is because they're hurting themselves, right? Which again, it's not the way that most people probably deal with their trauma, but we are out here hurting other people to overcompensate or to make ourselves feel better. But for some reason, they call it people with narcissistic disorder. That's what they do. So I think that's the first thing, just to understand where they're coming from. And then, to protect yourself, you definitely have to have boundaries. Okay. We've been talking about that for a little bit now. And yeah, I mean, that's how I would start.
Oh, well, I really loved what you had to say about the labels. It's really hard because you don't want to label anybody. That We're not professionals that can
Right.
diagnose anybody.
Exactly.
All we can do is speak from our experience and how we've interacted with other people who have no sense of boundaries. Whenever you try to put a boundary up and they don't want to accept it, and people getting out of sorts in respect to, you got the Karens, they're all over the internet that explode when they're told no. It's basically a 2-year-old, an adult toddler who can't accept a boundary, and they will do whatever they can to be able to get what they want. And the easier they, I believe that these type of people will look for the easy targets, people
Right.
that are hurt, people that are going through something, that have gone through something, people that are a little bit more isolated, because they're easier targets to be able to suck the life out of them to get what they want. These type of people will prey on people who have no boundaries at all. They will
Yes.
just walk all over you. That's the best way that I can describe it.
Yeah.
And I also agree that a lot of these things we're talking about, any kind of disorders like these, they all stem from things that you've gone through in childhood. Because basically, what it is, a lot of these stem from people don't develop that self confidence, that self worth. So, this is what they do to deal with people because they can't feel good about themselves unless they're manipulating and being narcissistic with other people. That's how they get through life. They haven't learned how to just love themselves and interact with people. And
Mhm.
that's the thing. I always feel like sometimes you just need to look at the person, and maybe if you get to know them a little bit and realize where they came from and their situations in the past, sometimes you can see, okay, this is why this person is behaving like this. Sometimes you can either just say, well, it is what it is, and either overlook it and not fall into the trap,
Yeah.
or decide this isn't somebody that I want to associate with, and just cut the ties.
The best word that comes to mind as you were both talking is parasite.
Hmm.
And know it sounds brutal, but if you think about it, they with having to have other people to manipulate and all of that, it's like they can't be satisfied with themselves. It's almost like they depend on stirring up drama from others in order
Yeah.
to be able to get some sort of joy or sick satisfaction. But if they're able to feed off of other people's
Right.
reactions and this and that, then they're able to deflect all of what's inside of them onto other people. And it's almost like they appropriate.
And add any sense of being in charge. Maybe, parents, very strict parents or whatever, and they've never had the chance to be in charge. And this is their way of taking charge.
They aren't really in charge. They're just acting. It's kind of like playing house, like they're pretending to be bigger, more important than what they really are. Most people are fooled by this. It's the mask they wear fools most people. Once you've been a victim of it, you can see you awaken. As far as the parasite comment, Jen, you're spot on. I usually use a different word, but I explain it like when you respond emotionally to them, when they're being mean to you, when they're trying to gaslight you or manipulate you, that is literally the air they breathe.
They
Your
feed off
reaction,
of
your
that.
emotional reaction. So if I can leave one tip for people who are maybe dealing with people like this is to be as neutral and unemotional as possible when they attack you, when they try to manipulate you or gaslight you, because once you give them the reaction, you see a little smirk and, a little twinkle in their eye, a little smirk they give you, then you're just satisfaction.
We were going to go into are energy vampires. These are the people that literally suck the life out of you. So, Jen, you want to start with this one? Give some feedback on how to spot them, how not to fall prey to them, and how to deal with.
Well, I have to say, energy vampires would be the people that just seem to want to enmesh their lives with yours. Like the narcissists, they just feed off of you and they suck the life out of you because they want to become part of every aspect of your life that you feel like you have no room to be yourself because they're constantly taking,
Mhm.
and giving nothing.
Right.
So, this
Yeah.
is a topic I don't feel like I have really a grasp on or much experience
Right.
in. So I'm going to ask both of you some questions. First of all, we just been talking about narcissists, right? And they can be anything, they can be your partner, your spouse, your boss
Oh,
at work. But energy vampires, is that kind of the same spectrum or like who is that usually? Or, you know what I mean? Like what
any
is,
fires.
I would say, good.
It can be family, it can be
okay.
friends, co-workers. I had one staff member that you learned real quick when you came into work and you're all happy and bubbly and that you just say good morning. You never say how you doing, because it would be, oh,
Mm,
well, and it's like, there you go, take the air right out of you, and
okay. I got
just
you. Yep.
yeah, step
Okay.
the yeah, and put you
Yep.
right. These are the people that they just they can't be happy no matter what. Life is sucky, and it's just, yeah, it's always looking on the bad side of things. And even like with spouse, I mean, I've never had this with my spouse, but you see some people that the marriages and that the spouse is just I hate that one, but it's like a Debbie Downer all the time,
Yeah.
and you can't live with people like that, and friends like that. You can't, because how far is that relationship going to go?
It's almost like they want you to be their therapist or something because
Yeah.
it would be like, oh, well, I had an example of somebody that complained about her husband all the time, and you would give suggestions and they don't want to follow the advice that
Mm.
you're giving them. And what I told them, I said, okay, I can't listen to you anymore complain. And it's like having your hand on a hot stove and I'm telling you to take it off, but you love
Right.
having it
Mm,
on the hot stove and you love suffering. So
Yeah.
either you love suffering and don't want to do anything about it when everybody is clearly telling you this is how to solve it.
But it's an attention thing that they're looking for. They thrive on misery. They're drama queens. They have to have drama. They're not happy if they don't have drama.
Right.
They'll call you up and tell you something like, okay, everything's good. And you're talking about my big thing I used to have with people when they find out I'm a nurse. And then they tell me this, that, and the other thing. And I go, okay, well, do this, this, and this. And then it's like, I had one person, it's like, well, I'm not going to take my blood pressure medicine the way they tell. I'm just going to take it like once a week. And it's like, well, you can't do that because you're going to have a stroke. And then you're going to lose your vision. Oh, no, no, no. I'm going to be fine. 2 months later, has a stroke, loses vision, ends up in a nursing home and then dies. And it's like people do that all the time. But every time you see them, they're asking you, well, what can I do? What should I do? I have this thing. I have that thing. They live on pain, being in pain. And it's like a Munchausen, a constant state of Munchausen.
Or sucking up all your time. Hey, can you do this? Can you pick somebody up from school? Had a family member do this. Just I always constantly asking if I could pick her kid up, do all this, and it's like because I got this. She's so busy, and this and that. And I said, well, how about you decrease some of your activities, and then you won't be so busy. I said, you don't
Yeah.
need to do all of this. You don't have to be super mom. And I said, because I'm not always available. Well, you're not doing anything. I worked graveyards and she expected me to do things during the day for her. Oh, just go do this real quick. But, you
Yeah.
know, what do you do?
Interaction with those kind of people. Maybe
Yeah.
I did. I just learned to block people like that off. But I think, when I was dealing with people that were very narcissistic, that element was there,
Yeah.
a lot of times. So like that would be my experience. Back to you guys. Just like we gave people some advice on how to deal with narcissism, what advice would the two of you give to you know, set strong boundaries and deal with people who are energy vibe? Because sometimes, maybe they're good people, maybe you like them, but you can tell they're just dealing with issues that they don't know how to deal with. And
Yeah.
this is their way of doing it. What's the best way to handle people like that?
Sometimes you need to just sit them down and say, look, I really enjoy being friends with you, but every time we're together, it's the same thing over and over. I don't mind having conversations, but it can't be the same thing over and over. We need to move on. We discuss the issue, we move on. Otherwise, I can't be doing this because it's just too much negativity. Sometimes you have to just tell people you're just too negative and I can't handle all this negativity in my life. You have to be honest because otherwise there really is, or you have to just cast them aside and just ghost them. It's better to be honest and tell them.
But at least
And
you told them.
like when you feel you start to get to the point where it's like, wait a minute, this person is infringing on my time, my life. That's when you got to go, whoa, we got to talk about this. And then it stops, or it's like, okay, we can't continue being friends like this.
All that you're gonna have is resentment and you're
Yeah.
gonna be hating them.
Yeah, that's true. And maybe no one's ever told them, hey, you're kind of negative. So maybe you might be helping them by telling them the truth, just lay it on.
Exactly.
So
It's always
Well, and then you have the people that are going to constantly ask time of you that you don't have, and all you have to simply say is, I can't do that right
no.
now. I can't do that. No. You just say no.
That's
I'm
it.
not-
Just say no. Everybody wants to be a people pleaser and be a nice person in that, but then it gets taken advantage of. Just say no. All right. Next topic, we're going to go into these famous people, the manipulators. And this can be, this is worldwide. It's in politics, it's everywhere. So I'll let Jen start off with this one, recognizing it and what you can do about it and how do you deal with it.
Manipulators.
Uh huh.
I would have to say that you get that a lot with your teachers. A lot of teachers are manipulators. It's a very fine line between negotiation because, it's all about getting what you want, but it's the method of getting what you want. When you do it in such a sly way where one person doesn't feel good about it, then that's manipulation. Or where somebody is hurt, somebody they get their feelings hurt, or they get physically hurt, or they get shorted money, this and that. The biggest thing that comes to mind are those, I'm sorry, unpopular opinion for a lot, but the MLMs, those multi-level marketing, they make it
Uh,
seem so good and, make it seem like you're getting a good deal. It's running your own business and,
that's the
or
biggest.
you're going to get your money and
Mm.
all this, but it's really quite something else. And they're really not transparent in the way that it really works other people that are selling it.
Yeah.
So that what I would say is manipulation and negotiation is when you're buying a car. That's more of a negotiation because
Right.
you have the choice. You're either going to buy it or you're not. So you have to know the difference. And if you're the one losing out money and you realize that, wow, I wasn't told all of this, you need to have that, I would say, slow down on your decision making. If people are rushing you into making a decision that they don't want give you time to think about it, they want to spin your head with a whole bunch of information overload and they don't want you to stop and think about it. If they take away your thinking time, that's probably manipulation. That's what I would say. The easiest example.
Mm.
Perfect. How about you, Ramon?
I like that, Jen. I think I have a better understanding now. And I was gonna go take the Napoleon Hill route, but I like Jen's car dealership analogy, and I'm gonna piggyback on that. So when you go buy a car, if you don't know what you want, what you need, what you can afford, then that salesman can manipulate the crap out of you. Okay, because you're just kind of like there. I don't know what I want. I'm just here. That's not good because then people pretty much, if you don't know where you're going, if you don't know who you are, then we can take the Carl Jung route here. Know thyself, right? Because if you don't know where you're going, who you are, what you're about, then people can just direct you on a path that fits them or that doesn't serve you, right? That's probably more like on a macro level, but on a micro level, energy vampires and the narcissists can be like your spouse or like someone you work closely with at work. The same thing applies to manipulators, right? If it's someone you're working close to and they feel like they know you enough to know that, okay, they know your, weak spots. They know where you're weak, where you're strong. And if they want to get their way, they kind of know the buttons to push, like they kind of know your flow chart, right? Like your personal flow chart. Say this to Debbie. If she says this or that, it's like
Yeah.
they have this flow chart that they've diagrammed of you and they know kind of where to go, what to say
We're
to
going to do
try
this.
to manipulate. So for me, it's all about knowing who you are, knowing where you're going, knowing what you're all about. Then that's your brick house, right? The big bad wolf can't blow that down so easy if you know that you're on a strong foundation, you know who you are, what you're about. So that'd be my take on it.
I look sometimes at manipulators like puppeteers.
Oh my
They
gosh,
must
that's
be
so
around, get you to do what they want to do, but sometimes they have you thinking that, oh, this was really like your idea. Those are the sneaky ones you got to
Yeah, it's
watch
like,
out. But that's once again, knowing thyself. Was this a decision that I wanted to do, or is this person, have they talked me into it? And the biggest thing with that is look at the news, look at politics. And, it's like people believe stuff and like you read all the stuff and everybody believes everything. And it's like, it's not true. Oh, yes, it is.
mm,
It was on the news. But you know what? The news years ago when I was growing up, it was, this is the news. They didn't give opinions. They didn't sway to one way or the other. They just gave you the news, and it was up to you to make up your mind.
Mr. Cronkite.
Right? Stand Rabbit. Now they're like the little puppeteers. But now, you know what? Who do you like? Well, we're going to give you all of this. So
right.
that's the biggest thing. It's like they get you to do what they want you to by being a puppeteer and making you think, oh, yeah, this is how I feel. This is what I want to do.
Can I say
Yeah.
something about that real
Yeah.
quick?
Good.
Just based off of what you were saying, Debbie, with the puppeteer and just knowing these things. Anybody can do a simple YouTube search to find
Mhm.
these same people saying contradictory things.
Mhm.
I mean, the blessing about internet today is you can find these people, the same people that are touting this and that, saying the opposite,
I know.
and completely just research.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to give everybody a warning. And I think most people probably know this, but at any given time, especially right now with all the crap going on, you watching the news, right, which I don't recommend people do. I don't really, but sometimes it's hard. You can't not see things, right? If you're going to be online, right? But anyway, you know, you could be watching footage, right? Supposing
Mhm.
of, naming any topic, right? But a lot of times that footage is from like 2 years ago, repurpose it
Yes.
to fit, right? It's like you think you're watching footage of a war going on, a protest or whatever, and that's from like 2, 3, 4 years ago.
I
And
know.
and they're repurposing it like it's happened yesterday or happened right now. You gotta be careful, man, because
They
you
want
talk
us.
about manipulation,
People are
footage,
so
news footage.
sloppy.
They do it all the
You can see
Yeah.
the dates. You can see the old dates. They're so lazy. They don't even bother to
sometimes,
change the
No.
yeah.
date.
Sometimes you can, yeah.
Tough. But that's how
Be careful.
hurry up, and manipulate you to get you to, get everybody riled up. That's the purpose. And then it's like, then you think it's like, well, yeah, they're right. And I'm going to do this. Well,
Mhm.
no, but people are just, you just, but with all of these, it's like, you just have to know and see it for what it is. But unfortunately, there's a lot of not very educated people that can't see these things when they're happening. When kids will, they'll do things or say things, and it's like, oh, my friend at school said this and that, and it's like, well, your friend at school's an idiot, and you have to sit him down or show him, and it's like, it's sad, and it's getting easier and easier to pull the wool over people's eyes. So, main thing is just check when people tell you things. Check and make sure.
It's the schools that don't encourage critical
Let's
thinking. And I saw something about all of the elite schools all around the world, how they basically teach people like all of the kings, like Eton College and all of these elite schools. They're teaching what everybody should be learning: critical
Right.
thinking, how to be successful, but that's not being taught in the regular school. So I just thought that's part of the reason why, because it's not being.
schools in the States, it's all about money. They have a certain curriculum and they get paid. And the amount of kids that go to school, whether they pass, fail, whatever, then they go to summer school. They don't care. It's like they get paid for the amount of students that go and the curriculum, and they really don't care. I mean, if they ever sat down and looked and saw the amount of kids that are graduating with D's, I mean, you didn't see that before. Now it's just get them in, get them out. You have to, as a parent, really take an interest in your child's education today. I mean, she just takes her own responsibility for education, but you don't get a whole bunch of kids like that. All right. Our final topic is critics. Who would like to start?
Okay. Critics, yeah. So I think there's maybe a fine line, but definitely a difference between people criticizing you and giving advice, trying to help you.
Yeah.
I will start by saying that, just like I said about the last topic, you have to know yourself. You have to know who you are, because then you can filter, okay, is this person just being an a-hole, or are they really trying to give me constructive criticism or advice or trying to help me?
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, I don't know what direction you guys want to go with this. I can definitely say more.
You take
I
it
mean,
in whatever direction.
yeah. Again, maybe what it is, guys, is like I don't really pay attention to critics like maybe I used to, because I can filter when someone is just criticizing just to criticize, or if they're trying to actually help me. I mean, things that used to bother me years ago don't anymore, and things that used to get me riled up and stirred up, people just said something, doesn't anymore. I think it's just knowing who you are, right? People can say something to you or criticize you, but if you know what's up with yourself, then either you don't care or you accept what they said. That's the other side of the coin. Sometimes maybe it's good to accept what they say, even if it sounds negative. Maybe it's something that you need to hear. Maybe it's something that you need to take in, deal with it, think about it, and then release it, right? Just like any negative emotion, right? Maybe someone said something critical of you, they were criticizing you, and depending on the situation, maybe you said something to them and you were being truthful, you were trying to help them, and they took the wrong way. Then so that they said something back to you. Different scenarios. It could sound like a broken record, but anyway, it's just like I'm simple, guys. It does need to be broken down and kind of explained. I think to a lot of people because I think people do realize a lot of these concepts that we're talking about, but they never had time to reflect on it. And if they're holding something in or sharing something,
Right.
maybe it's something that they need to release. So I think it goes both ways. Like if someone's critical of you, maybe, take what they said, right? And, accept it, like think about it. But then like, if you don't need it, then release it. If maybe it's something that you need to work on about yourself or, maybe no one has pointed that out, to you. And so it might help you. So it's different ways you can go. It just kind of depends on the scenario and like what they said and like how you feel about yourself.
Yeah.
That's my take.
Well, the critic part here, this all ties in, all four of these tie in together because if you have a narcissist
Mhm.
or manipulator that's being critical of you, that's going to be more in a negative way. It's not going to be a constructive criticism. It's gonna be more to bring you down,
Mm.
to get in your space. And there's, to me, and I always told my kids, if you're going to say something, you always say, have you thought about maybe doing it this way? Not like, well, you should do it this way because you don't want to come at people and, make it seem like you know better than what, and you're telling them what they should do. But constructive criticism, I think that's the best thing in the world. But I also think that you got to be careful. And sometimes people just are mean and they'll be critical of anything you do. There's some people that will never give a compliment. No matter what you do, they'll be like, oh, yeah, there's a little spot over there that you missed. It's just
Yeah.
people that will never give a compliment. But all four of these all tie in together with the same people, or one person can possess all these qualities. And that's when you have to just look at it. And all of them, you have to realize, look at the person. Is there
That part.
behaves the way they do? Is, what kind of background does this person have? Is this something that you can overlook with them? Or something that you might want to sit down and say, my thing I always say is when somebody does something to me and it hurts me, I'll just sit down and say, when you said that, I was very hurt by that. Then it gives them the opportunity either to apologize or to be like, oh, well. And then it's like, okay, bye, you know? And I always used to tell my staff, if ever I do or say anything and you feel I'm being mean or aggressive or I'm not being fair, tell me right then and there because I am never, ever meaning to do that. Sometimes it's just the leader that I am ever mean to hurt anybody's feelings. So I don't mean to be criticizing. It's like, I just mean to be like, try doing it this way, but some people
Helping
take
you
it
to be better.
hard. Right. So, but my only, with all of these, like I said in the other one, you got to know who you are. Know yourself first, because then you know how to sort these out,
Yeah.
how to build your boundaries, and then decide, are these people worth it? And sometimes you have to steer clear of these people in order to build yourself up and make a life for yourself.
Well, I like what you said about that. You took a lot of the words out of my mouth as far as being able to consider the source.
Hmm.
Because when you consider the source, you need to think, are they your subordinate? Which you can learn a lot from people.
Mhm.
I've gotten a lot of good ideas from my son, from my students, a lot of things. And it's also the tone and the way that they say it. Are they an authority and are, or are they people that have maybe had a bad experience or maybe they're jealous? I watched this Ken Burns documentary on the history of baseball. And the best thing that I got out of that was a quote from Babe Ruth that said, all the booing comes from the cheap seats. Usually people who don't want to make the effort, people who don't care about bettering themselves, don't want anybody else to go ahead because then that means they have to go to work. So they'll be the first to criticize you. Oh, I
Hmm.
don't think that's not gonna work. That's not, They want to
Yeah.
have a devil's advocate with this false pretense about, well, I'm only trying to help you. But no, you're not really trying to help me. Somebody put bullet holes in every single thing that I do. You're going to be the first one that I contact. I said, but sometimes I need some encouragement. And if you can offer that or any sort of, constructive criticism, then I don't need you to say anything. When I give constructive criticism, here's the way that I put out constructive criticism. Whenever I told my son or anybody an improvement about, hey, I noticed that you're doing this. Here, like you, Debbie, you said it. Here's some other ways, other ideas on how that you can become better.
Right.
So
Yeah.
that's what I would say.
Jealousy is a big part of critics. People that are critical, it is because they're jealous. When they come in, they see something and they won't say anything good about it, but they'll pick out the one bad thing. So on that note, we are going to close out this session.
Because
Go for it.
you and Jim both said something that kind of triggered something in me. Not triggered, but just maybe think about something. So a lot of times people who are like overly critical for no reason, it's two things, right? They're poor communicators. Okay.
Yes.
So sometimes they're actually trying to talk to you, like have a conversation and tell you something that's important to them or whatever, but
Right.
they just suck at communicating. Okay. So
Right.
keep that in mind. The other thing is about projection, right? So what they say about you is actually how they feel about themselves. So those two
Yep.
things right there, and you find that a lot in narcissism. Narcissists, is like being
Yes.
critical of you. They just talk about themselves. So
Right.
those two things right there, guys, keep that in mind. So
That's
Well,
incredible.
Well, that's what I was saying. You got to take into consideration what they're lacking. Once you realize that, then yeah. And that's an excellent point. Exactly.
Having those strong boundaries are
Yeah.
going to help protect yourself from that. And Ramon, it looks clear that you have strong boundaries with
Yes.
these.
Right.
If it doesn't seem to feel like it's touching you, it's because it's not, because you have those boundaries.
I mean, it's not easy sometimes. I just, you do the best you can,
Well, there's
Yes.
the point that when you thought about it, it was, that was a very poignant point.
Yeah,
And
100%.
I'm glad you jumped in there.
Cool. Yep. What it's all about, guys. So
And sometimes
right.
you don't know until somebody else says something that jogs your mind. It's like,
yeah, exactly.
That's
Yeah.
why is you can bounce your ideas off. And on
all
that
right,
note, we're
we are
gonna
done.
close out for today. And everybody just remember, keep in mind, always try and notice these things when you're dealing with people. Try and figure out why, know yourself, and we'll
Yes.
Exactly.
And if this is helpful to you, or you think it'd be helpful to somebody else, please share this podcast. Share it, like it,
share.
subscribe, show some.
We appreciate all.
All
thanks.
right. Stay curious.
All right. Keep
Bye.
shining, guys. Till next time.
Good night.